So then let's move on to the big business at this table. Oh man, this week, Pokemon Company, Nintendo, and a company that some people may know and some people may not know, but Niantic Labs announced a unique partnership where there is a Pokemon game coming to mobile that is unlike any Pokemon game I think I've seen before, but also very much like some Pokemon games I've seen before. So let's try and give as much context to this conversation as we can. Francisco, I want to throw the ball in your court to give people a bit of a picture of what is Niantic and where did they come from? Yeah,
so Niantic started as a startup at Google, and they created a very popular game called Ingress, which just in the Google Play Store alone, they have over 2 million downloads.
Wow.
And if you watch that press conference where Nintendo had Ingress at the stage, they showed pictures of people actually making gatherings for the game Ingress. When I play the game, they usually send you a mailing. You get subscribed to a mailing list. It's a very involved game, and what I really like about it is that it pushes people to go outside. So it's not a game you just sit at home and you open up your cell phone and just sit there. They actually, the game wants you to go outside, explore. They have what they're called portals, which are hidden in monuments or at parks and stuff like that. So they want people to be aware of their surroundings, exploring.
So they use real-life map data, basically, and then place items or events, set up events around the cities, right? I mean, there have been a couple of AR games. But what's actually surprising, that Nintendo, with the 3DS, kicked off AR for their handhelds as well, did a little bit with it, and then just dropped it, right? It's interesting, but some of these, the AR games, the smart ones, rely on there being a lot of people with the game and a lot of people with the device out in public.
Yeah, and the better AR games, I would argue, try to factor in GPS, location, like real world, whereas Nintendo stuff was really kind of separated from that. And in some cases, and maybe it's because of the camera they went with at the time, but it was very creaky technology. Like, it felt like it was based on like using a physical point for the camera to track and then generate sort of an artificial image.
Yeah.
And it was cool, but it wasn't, I feel, enough.
No, and
it was a cool little thing you got with your 3DS.
And obviously, the reason you need a mobile phone for it, apart from the fact that everyone has one in their pocket, right? And that's where you want your monsters to, is that it's always connected. Right, like you cannot duplicate this experience with the 3DS. You can't even do it with the Vita, because the market is split on how many people actually have a connection on the go. Right, and like that's why using this concept on mobile, that's really the only platform you can do it right. I feel
that's right. All right, so then we saw the trailer. We saw. What
do you think of the trailer?
What did you think? Yeah, I'm going to Callie here.
Yeah, so we went through that trailer piece by piece. And it was interesting because it reminded me of a lot of bits and pieces, reminded me of past Pokemon experiments. So during the press conference for Pokemon Go, they kind of related it to Pokemon Snap as far as the interface goes, and then the Pokemon Go Plus, which is that little peripheral that is like a Pokeball, but it's shaped like a geotag, which at first I was like, why is it a melting Pokeball? it's a little
I thought that was really clever. You take that back. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Why
totally
is it?
Kidding.
It's like a little...
why is it that shape?
It's like a tier...
It looks like a spot on a map when you put like a marker.
Everything's... The whole game is like
Gotcha.
GPS oriented, so they made it... It was clever. At first I didn't get it, and then I thought about it. But that
I thought it was like a Salvador Dali Pokemon.
Yeah, I was like, so this is like the melting clocks of Pokemon. But that reminded me of the Pokewalker from 2010 with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And the Pokewalker was integrated with the main series of Pokemon games. And so I'm interested to see how does Pokemon Go and or the Pokemon Go Plus integrate with the main series.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the concept did kind of does cross over a little bit, right? Like the idea behind the Pokewalker was that you would have an interaction point with Pokemon and you would take them for a walk. And while you were walking, you were gaining, what was it, like experience of some kind or just abilities? I forget. You were basically unlocking things.
You got experience, items. You could get eggs or hatch eggs that way. It was 5 years ago, so it's fuzzy.
But it's interesting because this is like a spin-off, but it is unlike any spin-off I've seen before where, you've seen your Mystery Dungeons, you've seen your Pokemon Snap, you've seen your Pokemon Shuffle, and each one either said, oh, you got to catch them all, but they won't do trading, or you're going to battle, but you can't battle other players. Or, this thing seems to incorporate everything. It's really surprising to me how deep this appears to go.
Just for people who haven't followed the announcement, right? The trailer they showed was live action. It was, part of it was a little kind of cloying, hey, look at beautiful Gen Y people, right? But it was also really well done. The way they integrated the CG Pokemon into the real world in that trailer, and like that sense of everybody fighting Mewtwo together was really cool. I thought they did a nice job with that. But what is the product? The product is a game you buy on your Android or iOS device, and it is a watch that connects via Bluetooth to your phone, right?
Yes.
So those two work hand in hand. Yeah. Is it either or? Is it both always?
I don't think you need the Pokemon Go Plus.
Yeah.
The idea, and this kind of goes back to what you said, Francisco, about wanting people to go outside with the game, explore with the game, is that the idea behind the Pokemon Go Plus is that it'll vibrate. It can be a watch or a clip-on, like on your belt or your T-shirt or something. And so you can press buttons on that will interact with the game, so you don't always have to be looking at your phone. Yep. They said during the press conference that they really do want people to be more aware of their surroundings, and that's one of the inspirations for Pokemon Go was everybody has a cell phone. We're all looking at them all the time. Why don't we take that and make it better for people?
Yeah. There were actually two things that stood out to me from this announcement. The very first thing that stood out to me was that it kind of takes it all the way back to the creator of Pokemon, Satoshi, and how he got inspired to make the series. There's, stories that he got inspired to make Pokemon because as a kid he was a big bug catcher, and he would collect them. And this reminds me, with this game, you would be actually able to go outside and, walk around. And then the second thing that interested me was the Pokemon movie, the very first one. I believe where Mew and Mewtwo are created is in South America. And I was like, if they have a Mew in South America, I'm booking a flight just to catch him. Yeah.
Wow.
You're
really cool. Things, huh?
Yeah, which I was kind of wondering that too. Like, how far will you have to go for some of these? And what's going to happen if you live in the middle of nowhere? Like, I mean, if you have poor signal, if you are in a location that doesn't have a reliable signal, like is Wi-Fi enough to get you through this experience?
Right.
Like, what's going to happen there?
And the difference between public transit in Japan and public transit in other places is pretty significant. Japan, it's a little easier to get around if you're in Tokyo and be able to go to different regions of Tokyo and catch different Pokemon that way. I can't imagine doing that like in my hometown, for example, where there was a bus system that barely worked. But it's interesting.
But they randomize stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Like there's definitely programming going on, and if there are a lot of people coming together in certain cities to catch Pokemon, you'll know they'll program more to those cities. Whereas like for everywhere else, they'll have smart automation and integration. But
right.
I mean, I really like this concept. I was always hoping for a game that wasn't Pokemon super light on the mobile phones. And it feels like they have everything that you need in there. Yeah. The question is, how many Pokemon will there be, right? Like
they only showed Gen 1.
We don't know that yet.
How many microtransactions will there be?
But so far, so good.
On the point of only showing Gen 1, that was weird to me because they could have shown newer Pokemon. But
that is the most iconic gen.
I also think that they're trying to appeal to older players here because I've talked about this before, but kids don't always have smartphones. I think younger.
More than you think now, yeah.
I would not buy my kid a smartphone.
Think about it, though.
It's the first request on the Christmas list when they're like 9 or 10. I would not be surprised.
Like 12-year-olds take the bus to school by themselves. Do you want to know where they are? Do you want to be able to reach them in an emergency? I think as a parent, I can tell you, I always said no. And then suddenly you're sitting there and you have an old iPhone because you upgraded. It's very easy to give your kid an iPhone.
Yeah. Well, but still, there were only a few kids in that trailer. It was mostly kind of young adults, and so I did think maybe they're using Gen 1 to appeal to nostalgia, or maybe people who dropped off from the main series. They want to get them back into the main series.
I think that's a great point. Most of the people in that trailer were older folks, or like the girl in Times Square at the end, which I do want to segue to the raid. That they talked about.
The raid was awesome.
They called it a raid, and people were running through 42nd Street to try and basically work together to battle a Mew. So, Francisco, I want to ask you. Mewtwo. Sorry, a Mewtwo. Corrected. But
They have different Pokedex numbers, Jose.
Yeah.
So
Here we go. Was 151, 152.
Mew, you can just talk into joining you.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
It's cute. It's true. But outside of having to travel to South America for a Mew, what I do want to ask you, Francisco, is was there a similar concept in Ingress, like something where there was an event that everyone sort of worked together to defeat or compete in?
Yeah, actually, we have I think from this morning when we went to pick up amiibos at the store, and we were kind of like in the middle of nowhere. There were really no portals to capture, but if you go out to a more popular area, like here in San Francisco, you get closer to the Golden Gate Bridge. There are bigger portals, and yeah, the people at Ingress, they do make events so people gather together at like popular big monuments like the Golden Gate Bridge.
are there location exclusive events or?
I'm not sure about that. But
Okay, that's a good question. I guess the last thing I want to ask you is, wait, did you want to
No,
add to the
I'm
race?
just curious. How was the reception by fans? Like,
It
what
seemed to
have
be
you heard
very
from Pokemon
positive.
fans?
It seemed to be very
'Cause-
positive, at least feedback-wise.
Because it's always tough to cut through the kind of the snarky console gamer mentality where like anything go into a mobile game, they object because that's not a platform they game on. But like the general reaction seemed really positive from what I saw.
Yeah, a lot of my friends who aren't as dedicated to the main series of Pokemon games were very, very excited to go back to it through this venue, right? Like Eric Sapp, who works here, is not super into Pokemon, and he is stoked about this game
Nice,
because of the
He
AR.
screamed and ran out of the room with his beard.
He texted me in all caps. He was so excited
Right.
because it's kind of like you're one step closer to Pokemon in real life, which is all of us Pokemon nerds.
Yeah.
Like that's what we want to
Yeah.
be Pokemon
Well-
masters in real life.
Yeah, and this thing, if anything, is the closest thing to the MMO concept without tying you to a computer playing an MMO, which I think, people have wanted that for years, and my argument has always been MMOs are not for kids. This is not I don't think this would fly based on those reasons. Pokemon always has to be accessible to everyone. I think that's their biggest goal with that
Right.
franchise. And the minute you tie it up in an MMO, that becomes a bit too hardcore.
Yeah.
So this phone thing is absolutely the best way to marry that to it has a raid. Come on.
I think it's awesome. And like to me, it's a sign that Nintendo is willing to take some new steps on tried and true franchises too, right? Like a lot of people always ask for the Pokemon MMO.
Yeah.
Can we all work together in this big world? This is a step towards that, testing out, with the one system that has the least friction with being connected, the mobile phone, which is huge in Japan as well, right? Whereas like general kind of console online gaming is not huge over there.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a good first step.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is coming in 2016. There is a closed beta in winter of 2015. So I don't know if sign-up information has been revealed yet, but we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for this.
So I have two questions for you. Do you think this is part of Nintendo's overall mobile strategy when they talked about mobile games, or is this outside and more Pokemon Company
Let
driven?
me stop you there.
One.
Remember, Pokemon Company is a separate entity.
Exactly.
Nintendo is one of 3 partners at that table. So
Yeah.
I would say no.
No, this is
but
separate,
in a year
right?
that Nintendo was going mobile, there's no way Pokemon was not going to take a serious step towards the mobile direction.
But I feel like this was in the works before even kind of like the announcements of Nintendo embracing Pokemon, because we also saw the trading card game already from the Pokemon company, right? Going to mobile phones.
Right.
The second is this one of the quality of life products that we've heard about?
It is definitely a wearable, I guess. Is it? Would that qualify? The Pokemon Go Plus?
Well, it gets you out and moving, no?
yeah, actually. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, no.
I had a request, and I don't know if it would make it through, but wearables up and coming. We already have a wearable from Apple, the Apple Watch, and Android's pushing Android Wear. And I was hoping, I know they announced the Go Plus, but it would be also awesome if they did make a wearable app, because then you're gonna start wearing all these wearables like your Apple Watch, your Pokemon Go Plus, your Google Glass. And
Do you have an Apple Watch?
no, I don't.
Oh, we got one for the office though.
Yeah.
And,
I've
we got
seen
to
you
check
wear
that out.
one in the office,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you were just kind of developing some stuff for it for IGN,
Yeah.
right? Like playing around with watch face and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, you just made an interesting point that just the wearable thing to me, I think if and when Nintendo is ready to enter that market, first of all, this sleep thing, I don't know how that fits into that, but it would not shock me if Wii Fit was the vehicle for whatever this thing is, just because of how well that did. But when you look at how that did on Wii U, it did not do quite as well.
No.
Right.
So maybe that
It's a weird
I think
model,
it's in
too.
that.
Yeah.
I think it's in that wheelhouse is
Yeah.
where I would put that bet versus
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Well, I mean, Wii Fit was a huge success because everybody had already bought the machine for Wii Sports,
Right.
and then suddenly you released this hardware add-on that did something very unique at the time, right? Now you can get an Xbox One with a subscription to their fitness plans, and like it's no longer that unique, but maybe they got a great idea for something wearable that ties in with mobile phones. We'll see, right? Because it is a known brand still.
I'm still hoping for, like, in the Pokemon anime, you get like a little Pokedex thing pop up when you see the Pokemon in real life, and it's like Pidgey, the bird Pokemon. And like I would,
Oh,
I'd be
that
so
voice?
happy. Yeah,
That would be good.
that would complete my whole life. That would be a quality of life device
Yeah.
in my mind.
Oh wow!
I think one thing though that will definitely be the thing to watch out for, at least in terms of this reception and when it comes out, this game, is what it's going to do to your phone. I mean, we had this conversation a little bit, right? So
Yes.
what is it? What do we got going on here?
Gotta drain
Yeah,
them
so
all.
the Pokemon Go Plus is already using
Bluetooth.
low energy. The app itself is using GPS to track your location and alert you if there's a Pokemon nearby. So, and then if you, on top of that, you have a wearable device. So if you're one of those lucky users out there with a Apple Watch, yeah, your phone's definitely gonna take a hit on battery life.
Yeah. So
and
those,
data.
Yeah.
Too.
And data.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta drain them all. You did
Yeah.
that.
Gotta
Was pretty
drain
good.
them
It's
all.
not a lot of, but it's not a lot of data they're sending through. I feel like
I hope
and
not.
Nintendo has always been pretty good at optimizing, and obviously this mobile company is smart about that too. So we'll see. I'd be surprised if it made a huge dent into your data plan and how it works.
But I think another bummer is, and this is something that affects Pokemon Shuffle, which we also had a recent encounter with, which is when with this game, with Pokemon Go, it makes sense that it has to communicate with a server for the whole GPS thing, for the whole, Shuffle is a game that just came out, which is about, sort of the match 3 concept. If you are not in a place with signal, you cannot play that game.
Right.
That is a huge bummer. I feel like unless you're making a transaction to the store and you're trying to buy something, why does that have to be that way? And I worry that with this game, I do feel some people are going to try and jump in and maybe not want to opt into some of the GPS stuff. Do they still get an experience, or are they completely barred from it?
I don't know. I feel like if this game's selling point is real life GPS based encounters, it's kind of tough to make the argument that it should work without it.
Okay.
Like
Whereas with Shuffle, it doesn't make sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
you get this game because of that fact. It's like when you download Waze, right? You're not downloading going like, I want to see maps when I don't have GPS, right? Like, it feels like you're opting into that experience.
Yeah. If the whole concept of the game is the GPS tagging of Pokemon, I don't think that would be considered exclusionary. Whereas with Pokemon Shuffle, that is very strange.
There's
because
no
it doesn't have-
reason for
there's
it. Exactly.
No reason.
Good.
Yeah.
It
Alright.
feels like something you should be able to play on an airplane.
Right.
You know?
Anything to add?
No, just, I was going to add that there are APIs in both iOS and Android that track your location, but in a battery efficient way. That it will only report your location when you moved a significant amount. So it
interesting.
won't track you like meter by meter, but within like kilometers. So there are battery efficient ways to pull your location. So
You're still on the metric system, huh?
yeah, kilometers.
Yeah, me too. Hey.
Nice. And
wish
API for
I
folks
was.
at home who don't know what that means. Just give them a quick
okay,
one.
yeah. So if you're doing software development, iOS and Android, and API is just like a function that Apple provides if you're doing iOS in their mobile development system. So yeah.
Cool. And this is why we have him on the show, ladies and gentlemen. He breaks it down.